Okay, selamat malam, or good evening. So good to be back. This is our second Pecha Kucha of the year. So we always organize Pecha Kucha 4 times a year, and it's actually our second one this year. So super excited, and it's our volume number 40. Can you imagine that? It's been 7 years that we've organized this event. First of all, let me introduce myself a little bit. So my name is Kashfi, or Cash and Fee, just like money. So I'm from Jakarta, and I'm the event coordinator for Hubud, but I'm also the organizer for tonight's event, PechaKucha Night. So, who have been to PechaKucha before? Wow, so many. Okay, nice. Thank you, Shishku. So for some of you who haven't been to PechaKucha Night before, just want to give you a brief idea of what is PechaKucha. So this event is from Japan, and we bring it from Japan to here to Ubud. So there are actually another 1,000 organizers around the world, and we've been organizing this for 7 years. And with PechaKucha itself, it means chit chat in Japanese. So that's why we're gonna have a lot of chit chat tonight, yeah? So what makes it different from any other talk? It's actually the format itself. So PechaKucha 2020 format, so which means for each speakers, they are allowed to use 20 slides, but for each slide, they only have 20 seconds to present. So it's only 6 minutes, 40 seconds for each speaker. So it's a really hard work. So please give an applause for the speakers tonight. They've been rehearsing a lot, right, guys? Yeah. So just want to give you a little bit of information. So tonight we have 5 mixed nationalities from our speakers from 4 continents. Wow. Can you imagine that? That Ubud is bring us all together, and some 2 of them are from America, 1 from Italy, 1 from Scotland, New Zealand, and Australia. So we have Europe, America, Asia, and also, what do I miss? Australia. All right. So I'm gonna tell you who's going. Well, it's already on the back, but I'm just gonna say who's gonna speak tonight. So for every time I say the name of the speaker, I want you guys to clap. Yeah, that's your job. Okay. All right. So give a warm round of applause for our first speaker, Kevin Martin. Next one, we have Cheryl Marella. Third one, we have Christian Jacob. Lauren Kopage. Alexander Flum. And the last one is Francis Lowry. I hope that I pronounce it right there, guys. Okay, awesome. Okay, so maybe we can jump to the first speaker. So yeah, just want to give you a little bit of information. So if you're sharing some picture tonight, please use this hashtag. I'm Cashtag, by the way. I always say my name is Cashtag. So just put PKN Ubud. And then we can repost your picture, basically. Next one. So there's no 20 seconds for me, yeah? That's me. Oh my God. All right. Let's go to the first speaker. We have Kevin Martin. Good that you still remember your job. Okay, so before he come on stage, I just wanna read the bio a little bit so you get a better idea who is speaking tonight. So Kevin is an author, entrepreneur, and education professional who travels the world full-time. His undergraduate research on genocide and human rights involved conflict resolution field work in Bosnia and Rwanda, his first experience abroad. Through his company, Tax Admission, he has assisted hundreds of American students and family navigate their transition from high school to university and follow their dreams. He left the United States 5.5 years ago, and he has since traveled to over 110 countries. He enjoys existential literature, yoga, meditation, and freediving. So please give a warm of applause for Kevin.
Good evening, everybody. I want to first thank Cashfeed and the Hubud team for hosting PechaKucha and for taking a gamble on putting me as the first speaker. And I also want to give thanks to the staff here at BetelNut for hosting our event. This is a really beautiful place. And finally, to our amazing audience, thank you for coming and sharing yourselves with us while we share ourselves with you. So thank you for coming. Every great story starts with a baby photo. I think this was the first and last time I ever rode a horse. But don't be fooled by those rosy cheeks and sweet smile. I got kicked out of the daycare where that photo was taken. My parents are not college educated, and they're the best anyone could ask for. They came to every practice and game, and they support me even when they don't understand me. Without their unconditional love, I wouldn't be here today. I come from a city where few people leave. We had more than our fair share of unplanned pregnancies, felonies, and even a few high-profile murders. I also come from a politically conservative family and an evangelical Baptist community. In Texas, children go to summer Bible camps, and at age 14, I contracted viral meningitis from the lake where people receive baptisms. I asked myself, if Jesus loves us, why did he want me to die? But in university, I experienced my first spiritual awakening, working alongside Bosnian and Rwandan genocide survivors. At age 21, I attended my first funeral at the Srebrenica Genocide Memorial, commemorating the 8,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys murdered in July 1995. I concluded my senior thesis with an emphasis on the heroes and survivors I met, rather than dry academic analysis. These first experiences abroad hinted that I was meant for something more. I stumbled into working for my university's Office of Admissions for 2.5 years following college graduation. From the beginning, I started planning my now unconventional life. I'm thankful that I delayed gratification rather than quitting everything and leaving. Because a lot of people come to places like Ubud because they're unsatisfied with their relationships or careers, but I'm the opposite. I left an ideal and meaningful job, a girlfriend that I loved, and my closest friends. The last thing I did before leaving was put down my beautiful cat Mookie of 21 years. I secured a supposedly prestigious Fulbright fellowship to teach English in Malaysia, but 2014 proved the most challenging year of my life. I see now it was a false path. One highlight did include singing in my village's local Malay dialect in front of the entire school about a baby squirrel, anak tupai. I also spent the year making self-destructive decisions and living without purpose. Halfway through the year, a man hit me with his car, leaving me hospitalized for 2 weeks. He refused to apologize because I was a foreigner, causing as much pain as the accident itself. My best Rwandese friend Philippe, who lost his family in the genocide, said that life is too short to live in the darkness. Finding reasons to laugh, smile, and dance to make life worth living. In 2015, to the horror of my mom, I booked a one-way ticket to a destination wedding in Cancun, Mexico. After a month partying in American spring break, I went to Guatemala, where I launched my company, Tech Submissions, by Googling, how do I start a business? I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I saw during my time working for my university that there was a market for my skill set. I spent the next 2 years grieving over anxiety, uncertainty, and doubt, but I stayed the course. I would rather fail on my own terms than succeed on someone else's. I choose the most challenging paths possible, despite the loneliness. There were some mishaps along the way. I once got stuck in the Namibian desert with a psychopath who tried to have me arrested and deported. The following month, I assisted a scientist scuba diving with great white sharks in murky waters near Silverini Colony in South Africa. I don't recommend either, and that was enough adrenaline for the rest of my life. I've gotten a lot of the small questions wrong, but I've gotten the big things right. My only business attempt is a success. I've published a widely read book, and I've realized my dream of traveling the world. I've loved and lost more times than I can count. I embrace the uncertainty. I also find that what you do matters much less than why you do it and who you are. Professional success comes from under-promising and over-delivering high-quality content and services that add real value to clients. I prefer putting in the long, hard hours for gradual growth rather than scoring quick viral successes. I've written millions of words, and I read 50 to 70 books each year. Most days, I do whatever I want, but more importantly, I rarely have to do anything I don't choose. People sometimes ask, so how long does it take to get from Texas to Bali? And I could answer it's a day and a half by plane, but the truth is, it's taken me over 5 years of wandering to finally find a sense of community and belonging. Appreciating a place as progressive and goofy as Ubud requires traveling great ideological, emotional, and existential distances from growing up in conservative Texas. I've chosen not to create a second business, write another admissions book, or hire any employees. I also have no interest in visiting every country in the world. Growth, to me, involves inner explorations for truth, self-acceptance, and love. I'm thankful that I can share myself with you this evening without any agenda or service to pitch. I've never had a lifestyle blog, and there's little overlap between my professional and personal lives. I spend my days practicing yoga and meditation. I love dancing and building relationships with others who have the courage to follow their own path. My friends sometimes say, Kevin, you're living the dream. And I answer, it is true, I'm living my dream, but it isn't the way. German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche warns that there is no one true correct path. He challenges, this is my way, where is yours? I'm following my way, my dream. And I ask you this evening, where is your way, your dream? Namaste. Thanks, Kashfi.
We need to make it.
We can stay close. It's fine.
Okay.
Oh my God.
All right. So right now we're gonna have an open question for everyone who have question. So feel free to raise your hand, and I will pick which one. Question? Upstairs? Yes.
If your clients find it's good or bad, do you even tell them that you're traveling where you are? Is that a benefit or a hindrance?
Yeah, it's a good question. That was a really early business challenge because I'm in Guatemala in Central America. My clients are in Texas and I have different time zones. Some of my families think it's really cool. They follow me on Instagram. Like some of my students will follow me as well. I give them like travel advice for, for family vacations, and like we all work remotely, so we all deal with time challenges and issues. But I think now that I'm actually settled in Bali instead of just moving around all the time, it'll probably make it a little bit easier on the pitch side to not have to justify this really bizarre existence of kind of wandering around. But actually most of the families think it's really, really cool, or they don't say anything at all, but it hasn't impacted my business performance at all.
All right, next question. Oh, okay. All right.
So it took you a few years. You took that leap of faith. You left a life that you loved. It was very purposeful. So what took you throughout this few years? What has you feeling connected and purposeful in how you choose to live the life that you are living?
Do you mean like since I've left the United States?
Yes, like since you left, how do you feel? What drives you? What gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning?
Yeah, I think that answer has evolved over time. I think particularly now that I'm in Bali, it's a lot more about meditation, yoga, dance, exploring different forms of consciousness. These are the things that are most interesting to me nowadays. I think the early things that propelled my travels were out of a sense of loneliness, to want to find other people where there's a mutual understanding, or at least not a purposeful or willful misunderstanding. And so I was willing to kind of travel all to like every corner of the earth to try and find like-minded people. And I think even going back to my childhood, the times I appreciated the most were the unstructured times when my parents were like at my brother's hockey game and I could just play with my Legos or play video games and choose how to use my time. And so I understand better now that the things that motivated me to leave when I lived in the United States was a very strong desire to want to live on my own terms and make my own schedule, decide my own clients, and especially living in Malaysia where I lost a large amount of control, a lot of really bad things happened. I swore to myself, like, I'm never going to live a year on someone else's terms. That was the promise I made to myself when I flew to Mexico in 2015, and I feel like it's a promise I've kept to myself throughout all of these evolutions and changes.
Right. One last question there.
Yeah, so when you're traveling into 110 countries, a lot of countries, what was the time period experience like? Over what time period are you doing most of that traveling?
Yeah, so after I left Malaysia, so my contract in Malaysia ended in November 2014, and then from this January, prior to November of 2014, I had never stayed anywhere more than a month. I was traveling at a very high rate of speed. I think like 2015 it was like 25 countries, 30 countries, 35 countries, 30 countries, something like that. And the whole time I'm like writing my book, I'm building my business. So yeah, it was, I just did it because I could. I didn't see any drawbacks of optimizing for my business time. And I just loved building relationships and meeting people, and that's what really motivates a lot of my movements. And I came through Bali last year. I spent my last 2 weeks in Penistan and hung out at a really cool cafe, and it was the first time that I was in a community of people that were just super, super interesting and really welcoming and inclusive. And I hadn't seen that or felt that anywhere else in the world. And that's why when I came back at the beginning of this year, I'm like, I think this is where I need to be. There was a 2-year stretch where I never went back to America. So I'm happy to not be moving as much anymore.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. All right, next one we have Cheryl Marella. Okay, you guys getting there. Just to remember, always clap, yeah? All right. Cheryl is a TV and radio personality, living and enjoying her island life while building her mindful public speaking coaching called Marella Media. She loves to travel and explore this island of gods, get connected with like-minded people, and hopefully spreading love and joy along the way. So, without further ado, please come on stage, Cheryl.
Thank you, Cash. Hi, everyone. How's it going? Sounds great. Okay, cool. I think we can start. Awesome. How's everybody doing right now? Let me introduce myself. My name is Cheryl Marella, and I used to work for CNN Indonesia. I used to anchor for them. And right now, though, I moved to Bali, and I'm doing radio, which is now I'm a broadcaster for Hard Rock FM Bali, and also doing mindful public speaking here. But I decided to move here to Bali. Why? Because, like Kev said before, I met the like-minded people here in this island. I feel welcome in this place, and as a proud Indonesian, where else would I go? I would go here. By the way, I'm Indonesian, you forgot about that. But everything actually happened because at the end of 2018, I sat down and I thought, okay, what's my New Year's resolution? I wrote it down in November. I started early. And I wrote something pretty big just because I want to test myself and I kind of want to test the universe. So what did I actually write? I told universe I want to go to the Oscars and I want to walk down the red carpet and I want to watch Queen live. And I wrote it in November. So November, February was Oscar. And I did not know when Queen was going to perform at all. So basically I just wrote it because it's fun. And because I wanted to dream big. And when we're talking about dream, I learned not to be afraid with dreaming. Because if I can have fun with dreaming, why should I dream small? I have to dream as crazy as I could, and then I have to let it go. I have to just surrender. And why do I surrender? Because I surrender because I know the universe will have my back, right? I surrender because I know I would expect that universe will give me all the great things that I want. And I also surrender because I want to learn how to surrender. Because most of the time I want to control things. But this time, how did I surrender? By not giving a fuck. I literally just let it go. I didn't care anymore what I wrote. I was just like, I went to W and I enjoyed myself there, basically. And I called my friends up and I hang out and I work. I do all the things that makes me happy. And then 1 month later, there was something about Mary. This girl lives in LA. She's actually one of my good friends, and I kind of forgot about her. But then she called me in December, and she's like, hey, Cher, there's this crazy story. Actually, I met a guy when I was driving my aunt to a movie premiere, and then he actually worked for the Academy. And then because I was being nice to him, and he thought I was nice, so he asked me if I would want to go to the Oscars, and I can bring a +1, and I thought I would just ask if you want to be my +1. Of course I said yes. I wrote it last month. I said yes, faster than a girlfriend being asked to marry somebody. I mean, there's the ring on the finger. So Mary is my long distance friendship friend. We met about 4 years ago, and she is actually my mom's best friend's niece. I didn't even know she existed in the world until my mom pointed it out to me, and I realized that we connect. One time she came to Bali and I hosted her, so she stayed at my house, and then once in a while we would chat, direct message on Instagram, we call each other, and maintain a good relationship. But to make things even better, in January, what happened was that I opened up Instagram and I saw a post from Roger Taylor saying that Queen was opening for the Oscars. And I did not even know that. I was like, what is going on? Okay, this is great. I think I just hit 2 birds with 1 stone, right? I mean, Queen is my favorite band since I was born. Basically, Brian May is my first love when I was 8 years old, and then Roger Taylor is my second love. When I hit puberty, I realized that rock stars are hot, and got me hooked with rock stars. But even though it looks like it's fun game manifesting big things, but I had to go through my own process for years. When I learned to let go of my own limitation belief that I cannot do this, that I cannot do that, I learned how to love myself. And loving myself completely, that universe cannot not give me what I want. That's what I learned in this whole process. Because without self-love, right, I wouldn't dare dreaming walking down the red carpet. Without self-love, I wouldn't dare even dreaming. Because I would always believe in that words in my head saying that will never gonna come true. It will never going to happen. But it's wrong, because it happened. And it's not just happening. I met this guy, Adam Lambert, right after he was performing with Queen, And I did walk down that red carpet. And what else? Oh, I went to the governor's ball and partied with all the stars there. So as I think about it, I actually saw my favorite movies winning, including him. I love that guy so much. And then what else did I see? I've seen a lot. And as I was sitting there, I thought this is just surreal. I really manifested it within 3 months' time as I wrote it down. And I learned so much about valuing friendship and also valuing relationship, even though with people that are not living in the same country with you or the same place with you. I learned because I maintain that friendship, this happens. I also learned that while we're waiting for things to manifest in our life, we have to have a lot of fun. We have to not be anxious in waiting, but just drink wine and have a lot of fun with your friends and just enjoy your life, because it is what the universe expected you to do, right? To believe that it's going to happen and just not worry when or how will that happen, which that's what I did. So if I can do that in 3 months' time, I think you all can do that too. Each and every one of us can manifest anything fast, but the question is, do you dream big? Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome, Pat.
All right. So, anyone have question? There, Buena.
You. First of all, that was really inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I had a question about when you were actually making these manifestations. Did you particular? Right, and is this a
Just shout a little bit, I guess. Okay.
So when you were making these presentations, the Oscars and season 8, did you find that as you were making them, it was something that you fully believed was going to happen, or was something that you were like,
I think it's kind of like this. I believe this can happen, but it's kind of a long shot. But I know it will somehow happen. Maybe if it's not the 2019 Oscars, maybe it's the 2020 or 2021 or something like that. But it can happen. I just didn't think that both will happen at the same time. But yeah, I believe it can happen.
Next one. Okay, I have question. Wait, I have
You have
questions. Oh wow. So, I mean, like, you've been having this relationship with your long distance friends, right? Like, for me, living in Bali, always meeting new people every day, especially at the place that I work. Maintaining the communication through a long distance friends is quite hard for me. Especially because I'm a person who always noticing what is happening around and just be present, like always present. So I don't, like, for me itself, it's always hard to communicate, basically. So what did you do to manage that relationship with your friends? Any tips?
I think, because when we first met, like her and I, when we first met, I felt connection there, as in, oh, I think this girl is such a good person and we can be friends. And so I tried to, we both, I think it wasn't just me trying to maintain the relationship, but she was as well trying to be friend with me. So when she went back to LA, sometimes we just update each other. Sometimes there was Instagram stories and I would just comment on her stories. Sometimes she does the same. Or when there's like this cool story I feel like I wanted to tell her, something that I know that she would be interested in, I would just, hey, you know, this just happened. Exactly how she did it to me, like, you know, this just happened. I met this guy, I didn't even think that I was going to meet that guy, which happens to be working for the academy. And then she would call me and told me about it. You know, small little things like that. It wasn't like an intense thing, like every day we would call and text, maybe once in a month or 2 months. But just kind of being there without even wanting something from that person. Just because I kind of appreciate her as a person and she appreciates me as a person. So it just kind of a mutual respect. Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'll take that. So be friends with me, guys. Okay.
That's a good one.
Because usually I say like, if you're just gonna be here for a week, then we cannot be friends. So. But no worries. I'm a friend of everyone. So yeah. Next question, we have the Mr. Tarek right there. So yeah. Yes, sir. What's next?
Good question. What's next? I was just talking backstage before today. I really want to create a media platform, because my background is media, and I'm still doing media, and I feel like I want CNN to have a contender, which is great news platform. That's my long-term goal. I really want a platform where all the news that's there is supposed to inspire and to make you feel better when you read it, instead of like scared because there's terror and bombs everywhere. But this is like, oh, great things happen all around the world, and I really wanted to do that right now. Hopefully soon.
Oh, you'll do it.
Amen to that.
Dream
brother.
big, right?
Dream big.
Dream big. All right. So thank you, Cheryl. We have 3 question or okay, one more. Okay, one more.
Yes.
Cheryl.
You feel like you're moving
The eye as in like one with everything.
the eye to the weed.
I feel like, yeah, maybe it is. I feel like I'm one with the universe, so it's easier for me to like manifest things or just feel love basically wherever I am right now. It's easier for me to do it here because I think the collective consciousness is pretty much the same in this area or in this city. I found it a little harder in Jakarta, that's why I moved. But yeah, I think to answer the question, I think it's a yes. Just checking. Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Okay, for the next one, we have Christian Giaco. That's my guy right there. Remember it, guys. Okay, comes from Milan, Italy. He's been traveling the world for many years and has been living in the USA, Africa, Greece, Iceland, Spain, and now he calls Bali his home. He left a successful career as sales manager for a big corporation in order to help people realize their full potential. Not only that, he is also collaborating with various non-profit organizations, helping them raise money and awareness. Just 10 days ago, he runs from Lovina to Uluwatu Temple, more than 100 kilos, for the Bali Smile Foundation that brings health care to people with craniofacial disabilities. So please give a warm round of applause for Christian.
Good evening. Let me settle. Thank you. You are a failure. You will never be happy. Nobody loves you. And worst of all, you deserve all this. These were just some of the things that were crossing my mind as I was commuting to work. Every morning, I would take the subway to my highly respectable job in $1 billion corporation. And every morning, I would imagine myself jumping in front of the moving train. My blood and organs splattering everywhere. The end. Ironically, this was probably the best part of my day. For 1 second, as I was daydreaming, all the pressure, all the problems, all the pain will magically disappear. Of course, on the surface, everything was just fine. I was always laughing, cracking jokes. I came from a good family, I had a good job, I traveled the world, lots of friends and women. There was no way I could be depressed, right? And yet, I was. I was in the pit, grasping for air, and nobody could even see it. Surely some of it can be blamed on trauma. My father was a highly successful lawyer, and my mother always done everything she could for me. But my father got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease the same year that I was born, which means that through my life, I never saw him healthy. And my mom, well, my mom was simply too busy between 4 kids, a sick husband, and an old mother to give me any real affection. Then, when I was 18 years old, my father started to have hallucinations caused by the pills he was taking. He started to see people that did not exist. And in his mind, he thought those people were plotting with my mother and with me to murder him. He became increasingly aggressive until one night he died in my arms. And the last words he said to me were, "I will be laughing, watching you burn in hell." This wasn't the only problem though. For the longest time, I felt as I was a ship with no sail, just in the middle of the ocean, being carried away with no particular direction. I was lost. Sure, I had endless possibilities, tons of skills and qualities, but I had no idea what I should do with them. I would just wake up and wait for the day to pass by in an endless cycle. It was a trap. There is a great quote by Dostoevsky. "The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for." That something, that purpose, is what saved me from merely existing. And unfortunately, I cannot tell you how or when you're going to find your purpose if you haven't already found it. There is no magic formula. Everyone has his own path. But what I can do tell you is that it always starts with forgiveness, acceptance, gratitude, and self-love. My purpose, the one that I've been looking for all this time and that was right in front of me, is to serve people, to help them. And I'm able to do that mostly because I have a deep understanding of pain, both mental and physical pain. After so many years, you see, pain has become my oldest friend and my best teacher. I know the darkness that lurks inside of you, and I know the emptiness. You are not a product of your trauma. Fuck trauma. You are not your depression. Fuck depression. Trust me when I tell you, it's not too late now, and it's never going to be too late to be happy, to find a purpose, and to start living the life that you were supposed to live. So if right now you find yourself down in that pit, don't let go into the void. Fight, hang in there, ask for help. And if you have no one to reach, or even if you do have someone, but you just want to, I'm here. Thank you.
Wow.
I
You're
kind of
good.
killed the mood.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's a purpose, right? All right. Question? Oh my God, so bright.
First of all, I just honor your bravery and your courage and your vulnerability to, as a man, to go deep within to where the shadows lie, where there's a very high percentage of suicidal rate within men, at least in America, and one out of every 22 military men will kill themselves. So I honor you for that. And what was the turning point for you? What was what was that switch that went off with inside of you that ignited, where there was a major turning point where you left everything to pursue your purpose?
The turning point was, sounds cheesy, love. I loved the people. I love few people back in Italy. I loved my now ex-wife, my family, and I felt like I was drowning. And the problem when you're drowning is that you try to latch on everything you can. And so the risk is that you're gonna drag other people down with you. And I didn't want that. And so I knew I had to change, and I did.
Next one. Next question. How long ago have you left Milan? Right?
I left Milan the 4th of September. Last year, yes. I've always been helping other people and doing charitable work. But before I was in Milan, I was just focused on money. When I was younger, I traveled the world, and at one point when I was 30, I was like, all right, let's just make some cash. And I did, and it brought me nothing. But that's just my experience. I don't agree with the fact that money is the root of all evil. It can be very good, it just wasn't good for me. I much prefer having a connection than having money. I'm lucky, I do have some, but I don't care about them.
What make you choose Bali?
I literally flipped the globe and pointed the finger at it. That's what made me choose Bali.
Well, you ended up in a nice place, right?
Look at you.
With
Awesome
me?
place.
Yeah, with me, thank you. Okay, last question.
Hi, thank you for that. Yeah. I know that you said that your title is, you know, From Depression to Purpose, and we heard your story. When did you find out? Did purpose grow from the beginning like when you first got out of depression, and how did you find yourself knowing that you wanted to be of service to others?
No, it wasn't immediate.
Okay.
First, I had to make peace with myself, accept myself. There is a great coach and a great guy down there, Nick. He taught me a few lessons. One of them is, right now I don't love myself yet, but I'm dating myself. And as I'm dating myself and as my relationship with myself is growing, then I started to be open to possibilities, open to others. And this island, you all know it, this island has a very special energy. And if you're open to this island, it gives you so much. And it gave me the possibility to help other people. And when that happened, there was a switch. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm here for.
All right. Thank you, Christian, for sharing. All right. Okay, so we already have 3 speakers sharing with us, so we have another 3 after this. But first of all, I just want to tell you, if you have any question or are you interested to be one of the people who speak tonight, feel free to send us an email there, events@hubud.org, and I will tell you more about that as well. Next. So, just a little brief of idea, like I've been talking about Hubud, but what is Hubud? So, I work there as an event coordinator. So Hubud is a co-working space. We are the first one here in Bali and one of the longest running co-working space in Indonesia right now. So it's been 6 years that we have this open. And after 6 years, we've been welcomed more than 8,000 members from 85 nationalities. So that's why I told you before, like it's always, it's kind of like a constant time for me to meeting new people every day, and it's quite hard actually to maintaining the relationship, but you know, we have a good community, so thank God. I love them all. So thank you so much for everyone who have come tonight. You are my people. Next one. So I just want to tell you as well a little bit about what is coming up next. So we have this event called Fuck Up Nights. You heard it right, it is fuck up. I don't want to blur it or anything because it is fuck up. And we called it Fun Nights, so Fuck Up Nights. So it's another event that we bring here to Bali. So this event is originally from Mexico, and it's been 3 years that we organize this event. So what makes it different from Pecha Kucha is the topic itself. We are going to talk about failures and what can you learn from the failures itself. The reason why we organized this event in the beginning, because we believe that every failure have something, like have a keynote that we can get away from it. So if you're interested to speak at this event or just attend this event, the next one will be in July 18. So feel free to come up to me later after this, because just want to let you know right now, we're gonna have a 20 minutes break. For some of you who wants to get some drinks, BetelNut is ready to serve you with some drinks right there. And for some of you who doesn't know about BetelNut, so BetelNut is an event venue, and also they screening movies. So for some of you who haven't checked it out, check it out. They have a Facebook group and they always update an event every month there as well. So you can feel free to click like and then get the information about what is happening at this venue. So I'll give you 20 minutes to get some drinks, go to toilets, and just a heads up, this is our first time actually at Pecha Kucha where we put the label. And there's actually a reason why we do this. So why? Because I organize events, and why I love events in the beginning is because I know that events can bring people together. And we are here now, and it's time for us to connect. So feel free to meet all of your new friends next to you. So it's easier for you to know their name first, right? It's open up the conversation already, so feel free to grab some drinks right now, and I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. All right, 20 minutes. Thank you. So, how's everyone feeling? Can I see a thumbs up if you're feeling okay? Everyone feel okay? I see thumbs up right there, upstairs, all good? Okay, awesome. So, are you ready for the second round? Awesome, all right. Next. Okay, for our fourth speaker, we have Florent Copage. Amazing. All right. Not yet, not yet. Go back, go. So excited. Okay, good. Okay. Lauren is a business writer and marketing consultant who helps entrepreneurs and business communicate clearly about what they do and why they do it. As the content editor for the Oracles, she writes articles about successful business people for websites like Forbes and Business Insider. She also specializes in website content and loves food. Oh, who don't, honey? But, except the cilantro. But, let's give a warm of applause for Lauren!
Hey everyone. So I work for a mastermind group of entrepreneurs called the Oracles, like Cash mentioned. And our members are self-made millionaires who want to grow their brand and impact. My job is to interview them about their stories and secrets to success, and then we publish them on sites like Forbes and Business Insider. So I've learned a lot from them, and I've noticed a few consistent themes that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to include some examples from some of our members, but I picked these 13 things because I've seen them repeated over and over. Oh, I thought we were going.
Let's do it.
Well then, let's just, can I skip? Off to a great start. Okay, so the first thing I've noticed is they focus on their mindset. It all starts with your thoughts, which impact your beliefs. Before you can do anything, you have to believe you can do it. Those beliefs impact your habits determine your actions, and your actions determine the results that you get in life. One of my clients, Yuri, his goal was to be a best-selling author. So he photoshopped the cover of his book onto an image of the New York Times best-selling list, and he looked at it every day until he made the #2 spot. Other clients, they talk about really celebrating milestones, like just finishing your website. Stephen James, for example, literally gives himself a high five or congratulates himself out loud. What this does is it releases the feel-good hormone, dopamine, which encourages more of whatever triggered it. So by celebrating success, you can basically create a kind of addiction to it. So they all really focus on different types of personal development, but mindset is huge. They also all have a plan and a routine. Don't worry, you don't have to wake up at 4 a.m., although some of them do, like this guy. Others stay up until 4 a.m. to get everything done. The point is, they figure out what works for them. Some of them write down their goals every day and track their progress every day. Others make their to-do list the night before bed. They all have a plan though, whatever it is. They're also always learning, whether it's through books, podcasts, you name it. Ed Milet talks about finding 1 to 3 people that you really want to learn from and really modeling them, but just stay true to yourself at the same time. And don't focus too much on learning. Remember, you also have to take action. So pick one thing and really master it. As part of learning, they all have mentors. Why would you recreate the wheel when you can learn from someone else's failures and successes? So it saves a lot of time, stress, and money. And so all of these guys basically have mentors at some point, even now as millionaires. Dan Locke, for example, started 13 businesses in 3 years, and they all failed. On his 14th business, he got a mentor and reached 6 figures, and now he's a millionaire. Mentors really speed up your success. And just like Dan, they also don't give up. Melanie Perkins pitched investors for 3 years before she got one, and now her company Canva is valued at $1 billion. Sharon Srivatsa had to interview 39 times for one job. The only failure is giving up or not trying in the first place. And speaking of failure, my clients are not afraid to fail. I'm completely blanking on what's next. Just remembered. So when you're not afraid to fail, you can also take risks. Oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking on what I'm going to say. Sorry guys, this is really embarrassing.
Doing great.
When you're not afraid of failure, you can also take risks. So Katrina Ruth had literally just a few $100s left, and she moved to Europe with her entire family. She created that pressure so that she had no choice but to succeed. She couldn't listen to her fears or excuses anymore. Mike Peters did something similar. He moved to New York City from Israel with $5,000 and chose to spend half of it for an apartment in the middle of Times Square. He did that to force himself to figure it out. And it worked for both of them. My clients also don't wait for permission. They take action even before they're ready. So don't sit around planning for too long. Sometimes not making a decision is way worse than making a bad one. Bedros Keuilian talks about taking action even when it's not ready and it's not perfect, and just adjusting along the way. They also work really hard. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about working 18 hours a day for 15 years. Success takes really hard work, otherwise everyone would be successful. Apparently it takes 10 times longer and 10 times more work than you think it will. But to get what most people don't have, you have to do what most people won't do. At the same time though, they prioritize their health and fitness. So don't skip exercise just to save time in the day. Going for a 15-minute walk is better than nothing. Craig Ballantyne ignored this advice and ended up in the hospital with anxiety. He's fine now, but if you want to do great things, you have to focus on yourself first. This one's cool. They also figure it out as they go. Colin started a steel manufacturing company when he had 0 experience. He bought thousands of worth of machinery and didn't know how to turn them on. He literally sat down with the manual and taught himself. The thing is, they're actually not that special, other than everything I've just talked about. But a lot of them really, they dropped out of school. Jonathan says, we're just making it up as we go. The difference is that they take action. It's common to separate ourselves from people like this, but we think they've always known what they're doing, but they're insecure just like the rest of us. The thing is though, if you take nothing else away from this, they all have a purpose. And it's not success, money, fame, it's making an impact, helping others in some way. Stefan talks about how 20% of success is how you do things, the rest is why. Because without a compelling reason, everything I just talked about falls apart when things get tough, which they inevitably will. And the thing is, they all started somewhere. So if you want to be successful, just start by learning about successful people. Start or end your day that way, and then just start. You don't know what you're capable of until you try.
Love. Okay, wow, too loud. All right. Thank you, Lauren. Sorry for that thing that is happening. It happens. It's like.
Who's not like a Toastmasters president.
Yes, it's fine, honey. Yeah, it's good. All right. So, question. Yes.
Hi. That was great to listen to, and thank you. The last thing that I kind of caught was you said it's about how you do things and not about why. And that kind of confused me.
Is that what I said?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you called that out because that is not what I meant to say.
Okay, thank you, because I was like,
It's
wait
not
a
what I said.
second.
So it's the opposite. So 20% is how, like how you do things, your method,
Oh,
etc.
like
The rest
20%
is
right?
why you're doing it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So.
And that was really my
Good to
question,
clarify
because
that.
I was just wondering, like, because to me
Yeah.
it's about why I would do something and not how I would do it, because the how is not even really the
Exactly.
question. All right, sorry, no further questions.
I'm glad you clarified.
One question right there, just shout it out, Michael.
You mentioned that many of these individuals prioritize their health. Is there a specific diet or specific meal plan, a specific activities that they kind of believe in, like as similarities across the board, or they all vastly different in terms of what they need and how they take care of their body?
That's a really good question. I think, so I actually just spoke with the guy Yuri, who is on my screen, and he is a health expert. And he actually had a ton of health issues that he figured out were because of his diet. And really, all he changed was he had a vegan diet for a while. But he basically just alkalized his body, ate tons of vegetables. But he said it's nothing crazy that, like, there's no secret. He's like, everyone knows to just eat more veggies, right? Like, that's basically what it is. And he was just eating tons of, like, processed food and stuff. So that's really, yeah, there's no, like, secret answer, but that's kind of really, yeah.
You know that there are a lot of like diet meal and everything like that on the internet, right? Okay, honey, got it. One last question.
So, Lauren, from spending all this time interviewing millionaires, do you feel like you're on the way to becoming a millionaire?
I feel like I have no excuse not to be. That's a really good question because I actually like the health one. I do that. I skip exercising and I talk to people every day about not doing that. So, you know, honestly, yeah, I think I'm learning so much. But the reason I pick some of these things is because they really resonated with me, which is figuring out what works for me, right? Like, I work remotely now, and I used to think that everyone successful wakes up at 4 a.m. and like, I'm not a morning person, I can't do it. So I'm learning that, like, just stay up late and work, you know? So it's really, I'm figuring out what works for me based on what they say and kind of picking and choosing what works, which I think has kind of been one of the biggest takeaways. It's like, there's no secret formula, but there are certain things which are why I pick these things, so.
Thank you. Just so you know, I'm willing for me to become a millionaire faster than we can imagine.
Thank you. I'll pick up some of the manifesting skills.
Okay, let's meet up afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Lauren. All right now we have the next speaker. We have Francis Lowry. That's good. A little bit awkward pause, but getting there. All right. Frances enjoys changing things up. That is evident in her choice to live in a different location, to work in a different career after 20 years to create a different future than the one people expected her to have. She works with people and organizations who also wants to change things up. Getting support through transition in our life is often challenging. It is in those times that we can feel lost. Frances offers models and approaches to help navigate a way through. She is also passionate about the power of words and how language is used to create and destroy. Frances published 2 books on Amazon, one of which reached her the #1 self-development bestseller on Amazon last year. It's safe to say she enjoys playing around with our ideas of meaning through language. So let's learn right now with Frances. Every time you're ready. Right.
Storytelling through spoken word and the written word has long been a way that humans have shared and passed on history, experience, and meaning. We, of course, share many of the language skills when we speak English, but the words that we choose are often those that are conditioned by our culture, by our family, our environment. And really, there's much to be said about the conditioning that we have. And I think that the forgetting your lines is really catching. So when I moved from Scotland to Australia, I really had the opportunity to see what the difference in language can be when we speak the same language, English, or a form of. I thought, well, it's going to be easy, right? Because we speak the same thing, we have the same kind of history, we share many things, but there were lots of differences. For example, what on earth is a doona? And really, what would I use a plunger for to make coffee? That's something that I unblock a sink with. And it took me ages to get used to calling my flip-flops thongs, which are a completely different part of clothing in Britain, something you wear underneath your clothes. And then there were all the abbreviations, ARVO for afternoon, not to be confused with AVO for avocado, Rego for car registration. I couldn't keep up, there was so much. But there are also other words which were more difficult to come to terms with. There's a word like wog, which is used to denote people of a certain ethnicity in Australia, Italian, Greek, and other European people. This is a term used by those groups themselves, but it was something that I felt deeply uncomfortable about because it was completely verboten in my country. It's a racial slur. And so it took me ages for the hairs on the back of my neck not to stand on end whenever I heard that word. So really, we see that although we're using the same language, the words and the meanings for them can be so different. It can cause problems. It can actually cause conflict. Somebody using that terminology in the UK would soon find themselves facing an onslaught of unpopular opinion and judgment. Well, we use words to connect with each other, and it's really about that connection that I guess is the important part. It's the meanings that we ascribe words, it's the way that we connect that in our own minds with the world around us, but how we connect with other people. And it's not only about our reality, but about their reality. When I moved to Australia, it was really important for me to learn the language that I could adopt there so that I could fit in and connect, because it is really all about connection, right? That's what we all yearn for. That is a deep-seated need of all human beings. And all human beings have had that since time immemorial. Fortunately, Homo sapiens have actually developed the prefrontal cortex even, which not only allows us to analyze the world that we have around us, but also to imagine a different one and to create something different because of that. We can really begin to change the world that we see by changing it first within our own mind. Our thoughts are the precursors to the words that we use to describe our world, and then the actions that we take to change our world. Neuroscience shows us that actually we can even change our brains. So we're not caught in the conditioning of our youth or our upbringing or our country. We can do something different to try and create new neural pathways, which in effect creates a completely different us. Our thoughts may precede our words, and our words precede our actions, but it's really important for us then to decide what our thoughts are going to be, right? What are we going to actually fill our minds with? Are we going to populate it with something that helps us grow, or something that diminishes us? The climate of our mind is really important in this regard. And that is up to us to decide. We get to choose what we put into our minds, irrespective of our conditioning. We're no longer 10 years old, we're all grown-ups now, right? We are the climate engineers of our mind. You know, we get to choose what goes in there. Our mind is like a petri dish. It has the culture from years gone by, but it also is subject to the environment to which it's exposed. That's where we have control. Okay, our inner critic looms big. We all have that. My inner critic used to say really vile things to me all the time. But the inner critic is really only there to protect us. It wants to protect us from what's scary and what's different, and it does that the only way it knows how, and that's to shut down anything that's odd to it, that looks alien. But I had had enough of that because it was a toxic environment, so I had to wake up my inner champion. She'd gone into early retirement, so I really had to give her a good jolt. I had to nourish her, feed her different things. I encouraged her through talks, through reading, through hanging out with people who enjoyed doing that sort of thing too. I still have my inner critic. I don't really want to get rid of her because I think that balance is really important when creating a climate of growth. It's also the shadow that provides the light, right? So let's nourish our inner champion and create an environment that she can flourish in. And really, it's up to us to decide what kind of world we want to see. So what kind of thoughts are you going to include and invite into your mind? Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Don't go, Francis. Yes, you're here.
We're also keen to get off the stage.
All right, that's really beautiful. I love it. Any question, guys, for Francis here? Please raise your hand if you have some. If not, then I can start. Someone's thirsty. Okay, you can go.
So, what kind of daily practices do you do to activate that inner champion?
I like that question. Well, I start my day with meditation, like I think just about everybody in this room does. We were in Ubud, right? That is a really effective way for me to center myself. But I also really focus my attention on ensuring that I, include affirmations, that I read things that are uplifting. And I don't mean that everything I read is a self-development book, because that would be ridiculous, frankly. I mean, I'm a writer and I love reading, I love fiction, I love all kinds of things. But I try to create balance so that, really the voices in my head, I am that crazy, have some, all have a voice. They all have a chance to speak. And yeah, it's focusing my inner language as well. Whenever I catch myself saying those things like, oh, you're stupid, or you're a loser, or you can't do that, I have to take a step back and remind myself of all the things that I have done, of all the ways that I'm not a loser, of all the things that I can accomplish just by imagining it and creating it, because I have done that, and so have all of you. That's why you're here. Does that answer your question? Thanks.
All right, awesome. Next one.
Francis, in studying the power of language, how do you feel the difference between the two words and but?
Between the two
words and but.
Well, and is inclusive and but is an excuse. Would you like me to expand, or is that good enough? Oh, I like that. Did you hear that? If we get our butt out of the way, everything gets better. I like that.
That's nice. Next one. One last question. Yes?
What's your favorite word?
So what is your favorite words? Word. Okay, yeah. As to language. Got that?
That's really hard, but I'm going to go with yes.
Yes. Yes is the answer. Thank you, Francis. Thank you so much for talking. Yeah, all right. So we already have it's going to be our last presentation of the night. So for the next one, we have Alexander Flum. Awesome. Okay. Alex was educated at United World College of Singapore and the University of British Columbia. He is an internationally published photographer, writer, outdoor enthusiast, and storyteller. In these 2 years since his graduation, he has already completed his Central Asian expedition, hosted a major public exhibition in Vancouver, published a coffee table book, Overland, Through the Middle of the World, and penned numerous other articles. So give a warm of applause, everyone, for Alex.
Hello, everyone. Keep me up. In February of last year, my brother and I decided to buy a busted-up old Mitsubishi Pajero and drive it 12,000 kilometers from Georgia to Kazakhstan. An expedition born primarily of intrigue. We set off with just a single, simple premise: to find out what lives in the shadows of the Silk Road. Roughly halfway through our trip, we found ourselves in Tajikistan, a country made up of over 93% mountain, over half of which is at a height greater than 3,000 meters, the very peak of Mount Agung. By far the most famous and magnificent of the mountain peaks of this country are found here, in the Gorno-Badakhshan Autonomous Region. This region occupies 50% of the nation, its entire eastern half. Yet just 3% of the population live here, or roughly 3 people per square kilometer. Snaking through this region is the Pamir Highway, the road that takes us to the village of Belunkel, the coldest and warmest town in Central Asia. Nestled deep in the high Pamirs, over 3,700 meters above the sea, there's a small plateau with 45 homes surrounding a road that comes to a rather abrupt end. In these homes live the 306 people of Belunkel. In Belunkel, there is 1 school, there's 1 shop, and there's 1 medical station for emergencies. As such, though there are 45 homes, there's really just 1 family. Stopping by the building that was rather aptly named Shop, the only shop, we were greeted by a family of earnestly inquisitive faces that, after a short introductory bout of unfamiliar formalities, invited us in with an open embrace. Such is the custom when a family lives as one. Now, with the exception of some well-aged automobiles, Belunkel has virtually no electricity and absolutely no form of running water. In fact, save for the few relics of a not-so-distant Soviet occupation, time seems to have passed by this particular section of the Pamirs altogether. In the absence of time, the people of Belunkel have instead come to master the many uses for a yak. They drink its milk, eat its butter, they're warmed by its frozen dung in the fire, which is the only available fuel. In time they'll eat its meat, then undoubtedly survive by the incredible warming properties of its wool. To them, the yak is a way of life. It's the only way of life. Immediately upon arrival, this strange village and its inhabitants had us gripped. We were entirely fascinated by this vibrancy of life found so far away from any other. Eager to connect, we had what seemed to be an insurmountable issue in front of us. Absolutely no form of communication. We had no common link. So on the afternoon of our second day, I decided to bring out my Polaroid camera to take and give a photograph to the youngest daughter of the family that we were staying with. Hiding the developing picture in my hand, I kept blowing on the Polaroid, occasionally letting her peek into what was happening. To the young girl, it was absolutely magic. The first time she'd seen a photograph develop, let alone one of herself. Finally, I passed the photograph to her and she runs right around the corner into a home, and about 15 seconds later, returns with 2 of her friends. Frantically, she's panting and pointing to the photo and back to me and back to the photo and back to me again. Just a few minutes later, we had found an eagerly excited, though surprisingly well-mannered queue forming around us. Over the next 48 hours, my brother and I took and gave 120 Polaroid photographs for the 306 people of Beluncle. First, it was just the children. You take a photo of one of them and they immediately run to grab their best friend. Their smiles were infectious and their excitement spread like wildfire. But then, before too long, the adults found themselves getting involved as well. Whilst their smiles were never as big on the camera, once they had a photo in their hands, they often acted just as giddy as their kids. These two people even told me that this was the first photograph they'd ever seen of themselves in their entire life. As a photographer, that might be the most impactful thing that anyone can ever tell you. There was an immediate shift in demeanor. In a matter of minutes, these photographs had become our tool to dismantle what was otherwise an entirely unbreakable language barrier. We had gained welcome and soon found ourselves invited into many of their homes, an invite that was often regrettably met with a cup of warm, salted yak's milk tea. This is my brother with some of the family that we stayed with. Their entire home, just like all the other homes, is 2 rooms. One room's for eating and the other's for sleeping. We ate all of our meals with this family. Generally, it was something very basic, like some plain cooked wheat or some boiled potatoes. Beluncle has essentially no vegetation and seldom trades with the outside world. This lack of outside contact became one of the many things we wish we'd found an answer to during our time there. We wanted to ask them how long they'd been there. We wanted to ask them what their customs of family were, or maybe what their customs of marriage were. Whilst their clothes had undoubtedly come from somewhere else, how often do they actually have contact with the outside world? There was a school set up during the Soviet occupation, but ending at a primary level. Where do the kids go next? How often do they leave, and how often do they actually come back? We were incredibly curious, but at the same time, happily so. And ultimately, I think that state of suspended ambiguity is the real charm behind a town such as Beluncle. Beyond the appreciation of its bright color and surprising presence, is the appreciation of the fact that it just simply is. I think that in this world of ever-increasing definitiveness, there is a certain comfort to be held in the unknown, to leave photographs and not ask questions. Perhaps, sometimes, it's best not to ask why something is, how, when, or by whom it was built, but to more plainly appreciate its animate existence atop a mountain, in this case, most difficult to conquer. For us, we leave not with answers, but rather cherishable moments, and exit with the warmth of the fact that, for villages such as Beluncle, what remains in the shadows of the Silk Road is surprisingly an overwhelming excess of sun. Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks, Alex. All right, so we're open for a question now.
I'm curious if you found out those 2 boys and how they got those suits. They were so completely out of context with the other children's garb.
So quite a few of them actually had suits, and I didn't find out definitely, but either the remnants from the USSR era, which ended in '91, or because the Pamir Highway is a trading route for Chinese truckers, there could be an excess of just things traveling on the highway. Even though they're pretty far away from the highway, there's just an excess of stuff moving. But my best guess would be the Soviet Union.
So once you were in their homes, like, how did you communicate besides, I mean, you said the pictures, but what else? Like, how did you communicate?
It's a lot of silence. Even like we can use hand gestures, but even for people like this that have so little contact with anything outside their space, even hand gestures can be a little bit different. So it is a lot of silence, and when we go into the homes, they often just want to show us things that they have, like either like there was one person who had probably the biggest dog in the village, and he wanted to take us into his house, and he showed that his dog had killed a wolf the week before, and he put the wolf up on his wall, and it was like the most proud thing that he owned, and he wanted to share that with us. So things like that.
Oh wow.
What was in the home?
What was in the home?
Almost nothing. So they're mud brick homes. There's kind of like wooden platforms, and everyone sleeps on the floor. It's a lot of rugs, mostly made from the yaks, and then they'll have some kind of stove that's really just made out of mud mostly, and piles of frozen yak dung that they use to fire the stove, which is running 24/7 because it's so cold. But the homes are virtually empty.
One last question. Okay, Mr.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah. Amazing talk. I used to have this theory that there's a correlation between the quantity of photos I was taking and that I was living the life that I wanted to capture that moment, that was a good day or good weeks. And then I walked away from that, and I started wondering, is my documentation of the event interfering with the experience, like a sunset, and I just enjoy it without looking for it. I'm just curious, like in today's selfie culture, you know, capture everything versus the people we met who've never had photographs taken. Do you think there's some sort of lesson learned about how people live a life that is not about documenting your experience, rather living it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds and something that many people have experienced, you go to some place like this where they have almost nothing, and they're generally the happiest people you'll see in your life. And I mean, that's something you'll hear iterated throughout all corners of the world. But yeah, they're definitely, I don't know, without going into it too much, there's definitely something to do with our current documentation culture that I think will have negative impacts in the long term.
What is the negative impact, do you think? I want to know. Asking for
The current state of how we share imagery for a lot of people is the more imagery you share is the better, and so you want to upload as often as possible. And to say what Lauren said about getting a dopamine hit, that's what a lot of social media is about. And there's been a lot of studies showing, especially for younger kids, growing kids in their teenage years, that has some very negative impacts on their long-term health. And I think that's something that is happening throughout all ages, really.
All right, thank you so much, Alex, for your time. Thank you. All right. Okay, so this is actually our last presentation of the night. So give a warm of applause one more time for all the speakers who have been prepared to this presentation. Another applause for you guys for coming. And thank you so much for coming, guys. It's actually the reason why I make this event in the beginning, because I believe that everyone has stories that they can share, and everything is worth to share. So if you are interested, maybe for the next Pecha Kucha Night or the Fuck Up Nights Bali, feel free to come up to me and I'll tell you more about that stuff. Next story. And the last one. See you next one on the Pecha Kucha Night number 41. So have a good evening, and I'll see you guys later.
When I was your